The Big 12 Experience West Virginia Mountaineers 2024 Team Preview edition of the Sports Gambling Pockets Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with the promo code TCESGPN to score up to $1,000 bonus in cash. Promo code TCESGPN. And we're also brought to you by Rhythm. Get your 7-day free trial today by going over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That is the sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. And welcome, everybody, into the Big 12 College Experience, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Mountaineer edition, baby. Let's go. We saved the best for last. Preview number 16. Go check out all our other 15 previews from all the way to Arizona to Utah. You see it on the bottom of your screen on youtube.com/college experience. First up, I am Moneyline Mac, a.k.a. the former video coordinator for Bob Huggins and Frank Martin. And this is a Ryan Russia edition of the Big 12 Experience talking about here. So let's go over to the other co-host. He's a walking contradiction because he was born in Provo, Utah. He's got family in Ames, Iowa. He lives in Morgantown, West Virginia. Co-host of the Ryan and Rush Show, Rambling Rush. Let's talk some ears.
Let's talk some ears. Save the best for last. Cheers. Quick shout out. We're also doing a segment now on the Ryan and Rush Show the day before game day. Ryan, we sniffed out that Georgia Tech 400 plus 400 money line. Don't ask us about the rest of our picks from that day, but hey, when you hit on a plus 400 money line, you're covered there. So, hey, great way to start college football season. All the games were really good yesterday for the most part, even the FCS one. So, hopefully that's an indication of what's to come. And if it goes to show you, no one's safe. So, hey, could be a good year for West Virginia to knock down some folks, especially starting on Saturday.
I think it's safe to say the dogs were barking yesterday.
Dogs were barking hard yesterday.
4-0 ATS, and quite frankly, none of them were even close to not covering. I mean, Nevada almost winning as a 28-point underdog against SMU. New Mexico blowing a 17-point lead to Montana State. I think we talked about it too on our Ryan and Rush day before the game. And I know this is the West Virginia Big 12 show, but I think it's going to come over to the Big 12 because we think this is going to be the most chaotic league. I think yesterday, week 0, was kind of a preview of how crazy this college football season is going to be with the expanded playoff. And not every game, you can lose a game. I think that's in the back of some of these guys' minds. How about you?
Yeah, we got to win our non-conference games. And we as the Big 12.
Yes.
The Big 12 really has the opportunity to make a statement. I mean, it's NIL and transfer portal has spread out talent. It's actually made more parity. A lot of people were scared, like these bigger schools, the Ohio States, the Michigans, the Alabama, and obviously Michigan won the national championship last year, but it's not as predictable as it used to be. So there's obviously the opportunity for a couple Big 12 teams to sneak in there and do some real damage in the college football playoff. Now they got to be pretty perfect during Big 12 season to be in that position. And you got to win your tough non-con games, especially when you are a West Virginia and you have a Penn State and Pitt. If you can go 3-0 in your non-con, then maybe you don't win the Big 12, but it comes to between you and a Penn State for that 11 seed, for example. Well, you have the head-to-head matchup. So, yeah, I agree. I think week 0 could be a strong indication of where things could go for the Big 12.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk about the non-con. I kind of didn't word that correctly. It's more hope for the teams that never would be in contention for a playoff as soon as they lost a game. For example, West Virginia. I mean, West Virginia, think about how many times we've had you get 2 losses by November, and it's like, all right, we're playing for just a really good bowl game and trying to finish like fourth in the Big 12. Now it's like, hey, man, if we run the table the second half of the year, we can get into the playoff. We can get into the Big 12 title game. So it's going to be a chaotic year. Can't wait. I can guarantee you this is going to be the most chaotic league. And we're going to be here every step of the way. But let's talk real quick, Rush, about the merch store. If you want a sweet-ass hat like I got on right now, the camo hat, go over there, the merch store, 10% off with the promo code football. Like I said, get this hat, get an Eat Shit Pit shirt for all you Mountaineer fans. I got one myself. I should have worn it today. I'll save it for week 3. Plus, college football kicked off this week. Week 1 is kicking off here, so get on over there and check out the week 1 coverage all week long with the favorite features as well. All righty, Rush, let's get into it and let's talk Mountaineers. And I think a good place to start with this team is the man that's in charge of the program, Neal Brown. Coach Neal Brown survives the hot seat last year. We went 9-4. It was a good year. We beat the teams that we were supposed to beat. Whenever they stepped it up in competition, they struggled, whether it was a Penn State game, Oklahoma. But overall, 9-4, 6-3 in the Big 12. Gets his overall record through 5 years to 31-29, 20-24 in Big 12 play. That's not very good, but we mentioned it 6-3 last year is a good step in the right direction. Rush, your thoughts, reflection on the Neal Brown era through 5 years now?
I don't know where to even begin with that question.
It's very open.
So when it came to having to perform last year, he stepped up and he did it. We're still needing to see if he can put 2 seasons together and be consistent, but he did just sign an extension this offseason, which it was a technical extension, but it did help both sides. Whereas if Neal Brown does really well this year and wants to go back home to like a Kentucky, it makes it easier for him to do that. If things go really bad and Neal Brown is an issue again in Morgantown, it makes it a lot easier for West Virginia to get out of it too. So I think I think this contract extension is the best way to sum up the 5 years of Neal Brown. I mean, his first year, right? I think he went 5-7, which was actually pretty remarkable. I mean, we barely beat JMU, that game 1. And JMU, obviously, they weren't the true FCS team. We know what they're doing now, sort of thing. But, he really, and then you got all these hopes up. And then what was the following year? Was that because his first year was 2019. Then the pandemic year, which was okay. Like, we didn't have our non-con, and that's when he got that extension. We beat Army in the bowl game, Liberty Bowl, if I remember correctly. And so I think he was 11-11 at that time. And Shane Lyons, the former AD, signs him to an extension. And I get the mindset at that time, but still, and then it gets rocky after that. And then he was on the hot seat. Last year, he goes 8-4, 9-4 if you include that bowl game. Schedule really worked out for him too. Don't want to take away any of the credit, but it wasn't the schedule we originally thought it was. But hey, you end up beating Pitt. The Penn State game wasn't as bad. The score did not indicate the actual game itself. And, we can look to we'll talk about that game here in a second. But Neal really has to show consistency this year. I think he's a great coach. I think when he's the one calling offensive plays, it's better. I think there was too much with him and Graham Harrell. Like it wasn't working out. Too many cooks in the kitchen. They've really simplified things. They've really focused on the trenches. I think he's a good borderline great coach. This is how you get great though. It comes down to this year.
Yep. This is the year to prove that last year wasn't a fluke. Because 4-1 in one possession games, with the one loss coming on the Houston Hail Mary to Dana. But yeah, you mentioned it, 9-4. 2021 and 22 were both a disaster. Missing a bowl game in his 4th year was unacceptable. And he took ownership. He called the plays, like you said, took control of the offense. And let's transition right into the offense, because the offense is going to be the strength of this team. If you're high on the Mountaineers, this is a unit where you think is going to be elite. Garrett Greene comes back. He was a top 10 college football quarterback last year. I don't care what anybody says. It's whatever his completion percentage. Watch the damn games, and you'll know that this guy was a top 10 quarterback last year. He just made every single big play for this program in route to 9 wins. Both backs are back. CJ Donaldson, Jaheim Wyatt. The offensive line, yes, they do lose Frazier to the Steelers, but they got a bunch of other guys and they're old. Rush, I think we both agree this is by far the strength of this football team, the offensive line and the identity of this team.
Absolutely. The offensive line shouldn't skip a beat. And that's nothing against Zach Frazier. Obviously, getting drafted in the second round looks like he's probably going to start for the Steelers this year with that injury. So, but that's how good our offensive line is. And that's something too, kind of going back, shout out to Neal Brown, is last year they went back to basics. We have to be everything else we can figure out, but we have to be great in the trenches and everything else can be figured out. So yeah, offensive line, very solid. They did a great job too, getting Xavier Bosley, that transfer as well, that can play that tackle spot, especially when you have, goal line packages or, 4th and 2 inches and you need that 6 offensive lineman to come in and really, drive. He'll really have the opportunity to do that as well. Ryan, I got to be honest. I'm not saying that there aren't going to be some weaknesses on this team or, some rooms are going to be stronger than others. This is a very complete team. I really like our wide receivers, Hudson Clement, Preston Fox, Jaden Bray coming in from Oklahoma State. Obviously, Justin Robinson from Mississippi State, kind of that bigger guy, maybe to take on that Devin Carter type role. Obviously, we have Traylon Ray, who that they can line up at running back sometimes. Same with Rodney Gallagher, Traylon Ray, Rodney Gallagher. Both those guys are just fast and can come off the end hard. And then Darius Farmer, Day Farmer, was originally going to go to UCF. Now, changes his commitment to West Virginia. That it is a pretty solid, receiver room. Obviously, you brought up the running backs with Jaheim Wyatt, CJ Donaldson. If you want that more shifty type back, you got Jaheim Wyatt to go to. If you need those 3rd and 3 and a hard 3 to 4 yards, you got CJ Donaldson. Then obviously you talked about Garrett Greene with his dual threat ability, talked about, being better with touch this year, working on his throwing mechanics, especially his lower body mechanics. But, the way Garrett Greene plays, and obviously we don't hope for it at all this year with injury, that's always a real possibility. But Nico coming back in, solid second quarterback that, if Garrett hurts his ankle again and you have a 3-game stretch coming up and you at least need to go 2-1 or, maybe even 3-0, Nico could be the guy to do that. So I love this offense, Ryan. I really do. It's a very complete complementary offense where guys can do multiple things. And I forgot because I'll save you some too, but Cole Taylor and Traylon Davis. Cole Taylor is basically another wide receiver, but can play tight end very well. Traylon Davis has made some big plays too. You even have the opportunity for some 2 tight end sets as well, depending on what you want to do. You can, this offense is so dynamic and multifunctional. You can, whatever game plan, you can do it against, you find the weakness in the defense of whoever you're playing, and you can make the game plan all around that and not worry about missing a beat. I truly believe that.
I completely agree. And I want to flash Daniel because, there's still a narrative that Garrett Greene is okay. Dude, he had 3,000 combined yards and 30 touchdowns. He was a top 10 from a production, top 10 quarterback last year. And you mentioned it, Rush. He missed 2 games because of his style. So, I echo everything that you said with it. The biggest thing, the biggest jump will be if Garrett Greene can connect with these receivers and take the top off the defense, because they are going to see stacked boxes with how good that offensive line is at moving people, and Donaldson and Jaheim wiping a great 1-2 punch in the backfield. So can that receiver room, a lot of the guys headed into their second year in this program, you mentioned it, Clement, Fox, Gallagher, and then you bring in guys like Robinson and Bray and Farmer. Can they add another dynamic to this passing attack? Cole Taylor, but offense, they're as good as anybody in the league, and quite frankly, they're offensively, they're about as balanced as any team in the country. So defense, if you want to pick some holes at the Mountaineers, this would be the side of the football, because it was weird. They were really good in September, then they got really banged up, and then that's when Garrett Greene, that offense, really took hold and found ways to win games. Because this defense was a mess from about after the bye week, TCU and on. last year. So what's your thoughts on this defense? A lot of new faces. You could tell that they thought they had to add some faces in the secondary with all the guys they're bringing in.
Yeah, they did a good job. They were able to retain Anthony Wilson, which was huge. Aubrey Burks as well, kind of playing that spear. Aiden Guards comes in from Duquesne. Should be a solid cornerback as long as, and this is the big one, Garnett Hollis, the Northwestern cornerback coming in as well. We have Jaheim Joseph, another Northwestern guy coming in. So they did an excellent job of retaining the talent they needed to in the secondary with Anthony Wilson, Josiah Jackson, and Aubrey Burks, but then also being able to go out and be like, we need to rebuild this room. I'm actually not that worried about the secondary. Hopefully I'm not, biting my tongue here in the next couple of weeks, but I think the secondary is going to be pretty solid. I also love our backing core. Josiah Trotter is expected to make a big jump this year. Obviously, Trey Lathan. And speaking of when the defense went downhill, it's when Trey Lathan got hurt in that TCU game. That was kind of the catalyst in all of that. So expecting big things from Ben Cutter, of course. Reed Cicero, Carso from Ohio State coming in, especially is supposed to put in some big minutes. My biggest concern, Ryan, interior defensive line. Can we get to that quarterback? A lot of people are fired up about Eddie V. Mulbuzz getting a lot of hype too. A couple of these other guys. Whoever can get to the quarterback is going to get the most time. Not worried about Sean Martin, a defensive end. Obviously, the guys, kind of playing that spur coming off the end with, Ty French is one guy that they brought in, which was a great pickup. Obviously, Tyron Bradley Jr., another guy that they've been able to retain. But my biggest concern is interior line pressure. I'm hoping that they can kind of only need, 2 ends and basically a nose tackle. I think you need to put 3 up front instead of 4. But obviously, you got to make adjustments off of things too. And it may depend on who they're playing. But that's my biggest concern is getting to the quarterback.
Yep. And I think if this defense can just be middle of the pack, and maybe that 5 or 6 to 8 range, 6 to 9, not 9. They got to be top half to
they do
to get to where we think they could be. If they're in that 5 to 7 range, to complement this offense, I think they can win the Big 12. But
Amen.
We'll talk about the schedule. They did not get any. They did not get any favors on the schedule front on the other side, and we'll break it down. What would be good? What would be bad? The ceiling, the floor. On the other side, because we got to talk about Underdog Fantasy right now. Use the promo code right above me. Where are we at? There we go. TCESGPN to claim your special pick and first time deposit. Offer up to $1,000. $1,000 in bonus cash. Underdog Fantasy promo code TCESGPN. This week, we will give out our first Big 12 lineup in our Underdog plays for the upcoming weekend. So make sure you get your Underdog accounts locked and loaded. Troy will be back with us this week to break down he's big time on Underdog. So make sure you follow him and subscribe to the College Experience because we'll be doing Underdog all year long. And we're also brought to you by Circa, Surviving Circa Millions. The weekend to get out there and meet Ryan and Chana's past, but you can still sign up for the contest between now and September 7th. If you can't do so in person, you can use the proxy and submit your picks that way. Proxy.footballcontest.com to save you $50 off with that promo code SGP and a free hat. All righty, we are back on the Big 12 College Experience, talking the best team in the league. That is the West Virginia Mountaineers. So we're going to do this one a little bit different just because Rush and I host the Ryan and Rush show, and we're doing our final season predictions this Thursday. So make sure you go check out that episode and all the other content with the other 15 teams that we got episodes out in the Big 12. We're going to break it down by stretches on the schedule. What would be good? What would be bad? What's realistic? We'll talk floor, ceiling. And then, like I said, we will do our final prediction later in the week. I am flashing the odds now. Over under set at 6.5 wins. Oof, that is a little low, I think, to the general public. 20-1 to win the Big 12. Hello. 501 to win the national championship. Oh, yeah. Get me on that. Rush, it's a little scary that number's that low. Vegas is.
Oh, yeah.
Vegas has something, and they're saying last year was a fluke.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when they originally came out with the 6.5, I'm like, oh shit, we're going 6-6. Fuck. Like, but I mean, who knows, right? I think Vegas and the Big 12, with how heavy this, especially top, middle heavy, the last 4 games are definitely manageable, but the first 8 are like, prove it. It's basically a prove it schedule. And like I said, did a great job. Very talented team, and they have full ability to prove it, right? But the 8-4 like if you were to go 8-4 this year, Ryan, we might have brought this up before. That's equivalent to like a 10-2 last year, which almost happened. We're talking to special teams and a Hail Mary away from that. The bowl game probably would have been a little bit different then because of that. But this is the Big 12. Okay, West Virginia, we see you. Good job last year, but you want to be competitive. You want to be one of those teams that's vying to be that next Oklahoma or Texas in this conference. You're going to have to show us. And that's exactly what this schedule is.
Yes. And I'm looking at it right now. The juice, it's minus 125 to the over. So Vegas kind of saying 7-5 is the most likely record, which I think is fair. And I will agree with you there, Rush, too, that they're saying you guys didn't beat a winning team last year outside of, I guess, Texas Tech. Prove it that last year wasn't a fluke. Your over-under the year before was 4.5. Yeah, you put it together, but you had a great schedule. And Rush, you just said it. This team is better than last year, but this team could very well have a worse record just because of the way the schedule lines out. So let's get into it. Let's talk non-con because they open up. Well, I think everybody knows who their opener is. It's probably the biggest game of week 1 outside of maybe Texas A&M Notre Dame. We got the Penn State Nittany Lions, a rematch of last year. Penn State won 38-15. Then you got Albany week 2. And then, of course, our backyard brawl, each ship Pitt. That game will be at Pitt, so it'll be a neutral site game, 50-50 crowd, because Pitt doesn't have fans. Rush, what would be good and realistic, and what would be a nightmare scenario for these first 3?
Well, I'll tell you what would be like a total West Virginia thing to do would be to beat Penn State and Pitt and lose to Albany at home. That would be I don't know. Like if you ask West Virginia fans, I'd be curious. You go 2-1 in your non-conference games. How would you like that? And I would be curious what honestly, maybe we need to pull. Yeah. Who would you would rather lose to? Maybe we should pull that on Ryan and Rush. Anyway,
yes.
Okay, so obviously nightmare scenario would be going
1-2,
and it's an ugly game against Albany, and you lose the backyard brawl, and you get crushed by Penn State. And Albany, you do have to be careful of them. A top 4 team from the FCS last year. Realistic scenario, what most likely is going to happen? Tough game, solid game against Penn State. Maybe they escape narrowly with the last-minute field goal. Come out, week 2 against Albany, crush them. And then you go up to Pitt and you crush them. I think that's most likely to happen. 3-0 is by no means out of the realm of possibility. I just want to make that clear. It is not.
No, not at all. Am I crazy for being more worried about the Pitt game this year than 2 years ago? When we went up there, when they were favored, like I feel like in the brawl, just watching this rivalry and how much we hate each other, it does favor the dog. I mean, the famous game, unfortunately for us, Rush, is the 13-9 game. And then how many times have we blown their opportunity to win the Big East? If we beat Penn State week 1, does that Pitt game worry you in week 3 as a potential letdown?
Well, of course, I would say that Albany game worries me too. After Penn State because of the sandwich spot, that is a great sandwich spot for Albany. Like no one sleep on that. Like let's make that really clear. Another totally West Virginia thing to do would be to lose the backyard, beat Penn State, lose the backyard brawl, and then go to the Big 12 championship. That would be another, because we can't have it all. I know a lot of people are saying, and it does make sense on paper, we should beat Pitt and we beat them pretty good. but we're also talking backyard brawl and rivalries. I don't think they'll clearly sleepwalk into this game. And, you do have Kansas on deck, but they won't be looking ahead to that by any means. This game means everything for West Virginia. They just can't get overconfident. They got to stay humble. And if they do that, I think they should be okay. But it's a rivalry game. They're out the record books no matter when they're playing. There's always, I guess, a worry you have.
Yeah. And also, do you get a good laugh out of the Penn State people saying that they're our Super Bowl? I'm like, you're not our Super Bowl. Like, it would be great to beat Penn State. Don't get me wrong. It would be great for this channel, for the Big 12, but Penn State is not the Super Bowl on the schedule, man. The goal is to win the Big 12 and get to the playoff. Am I wrong?
Yeah, no, Pitt will always be our Super Bowl. Like, we'll always be each other's Super Bowls. That's the rivalry game. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. We really want this one against Penn State, but it's not. I mean, when you look at this schedule, dude, there's a lot of quote Super Bowls in here. I mean, and here's the thing, like, West Virginia fans are aware of our history with Penn State. While we can kind of call it a regional rivalry or rivalry, I mean, when you look at the record, it's really not. Like, we're aware. We're aware of where we match up against Penn State historically. It's not our Super Bowl. I think we're fired that this game's in Morgantown and it starts college football season off, and we have a really good team, and this is where teams do fall, But I don't think any West Virginia fan, if we lose to Penn State, is being like, oh, season's over. Whereas I feel like they would feel that way against Pitt. And you still have the whole Big 12 season ahead of you.
It's not even the biggest Super Bowl in the non-con, like you said. Like the brawl is still the big game on the schedule. I would make the argument that Penn State is like the 10th. If you say, give me which games I want, Penn State would be like 11th. Penn State would be 11th on the list. I would rather win every Big 12 game if it meant losing the Penn State game. Like, I think the Penn State game is like the 11th. It's gravy on top. It's good for the brand. It's good for the program to be able to get big noon kickoff. But if we had an average ass team, there would not be as much juice for the Penn State game. Part of the reason why our fan base is juiced is because we have a good team coming back, coming off a really good year. Penn State just happens to be the opponent.
I agree with you there. If we were an average team and had like, hey, let's try to go 7-5 this year, Penn State then would be our Super Bowl. But it's not. It's just not this year.
Yeah.
The only way this Penn State game, it's a little more than gravy if it does come down to seeding in the college football playoff. That's the only hesitation I have. If it comes down to that 11 seed and it's a head-to-head, Penn State versus West Virginia, then that's where you could run into a little bit of trouble. But so much has to happen before that.
I know. I just want to take a shot at Penn State because Penn State's starting to get very, very – they're annoying as hell. I'm not going to lie.
They've always been annoying as hell.
And, like, they act like they're Ohio State or Michigan. West Virginia's a top 25 all-time program. We're not one of these fucking bad teams in the Big Ten like Illinois or Indiana where Penn State might be their Super Bowl. It's going to be a hell of a game, and I can't wait for the game Saturday. I'll be in Morgantown with Rush, and hopefully we can get a big win to start the season. All right, so we think most likely 2-1 through the first week.
Yeah,
most likely. All right, this is where it gets hard. Start off Big 12 with Kansas, then at OK State, Iowa State, K-State, and at Arizona. Oof.
Tough.
I mean, that's 5 outside of Utah. That's the 5 favorites in the league.
Yeah. The good thing is you do have that bye week before you have to go to Stillwater. So that's good. I will say the bye weeks are lined up. So it's 4 games bye, 4 games bye. So it's like perfectly lined up for West Virginia. That Kansas game. Well, I will say this, those 5 in a row, at least 3 of them are in Morgantown, the KU, Iowa State, Kansas State. So theoretically, from a Big 12 perspective, if you go 3-2 in that stretch, say you lose your away games in Stillwater and Tucson, and then, hey, you could win out those last 4. I'm not worried about going at Cincinnati. Baylor's never won in Morgantown. I know we'll get to that in a second, but bringing it back to why these games are very interesting, Ryan. UCF a Florida team coming up to Morgantown late, and who knows what's going on in Lubbock the last game of the season. But I mean, if you take care of business, win your home games against Kansas, Iowa State, Kansas State, lose at Arizona, lose at OK State, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. Stillwater's been always a hard place for us to play. Who knows what we're getting with Arizona? That big game could surprise us, surprise people. I actually would not be surprised if we went at Arizona that late in the season. I think there's still a lot to figure out about the Arizona team, but Kansas, we're trying to make up for losing week 2 a couple years ago in overtime. Brutal game. Iowa State, we usually get them. Whoever the home team is in that game usually wins. Last time we beat Brock Purdy here, and then they killed us, and then we obviously didn't play last year. Kansas State, man, we keep going back and forth with them. We beat them for a couple years in a row, then they got us. That's what it if we're going to go to the Big 12 championship, it's probably going to come down to that Kansas State game.
Yeah. Oh, and they could not have drawn K-State at a better time. They're coming off at Colorado. So this is a back-to-back road spot for K-State, and they have the Sunflower Showdown. They, odds-wise, probably will be undefeated coming into Morgantown on October 19th. Rush, what's a nightmare here in these 5 games? 1-4?
Yeah.
They're not going to go. They're too good to go 0-5. So
no. They won't go 0-5. They could. I mean, and 3 of them could be like 1-possession games. It's going to come down to the 1-possession games. Can we rise when it's game time? Can Neal Brown manage the clock? Things like that. Can we drain the clock on offense? Get those stops needed on defense? I mean, I know that's football basically in a nutshell, but those who can do it, obviously, great things will happen to them. And that's what it's going to come down to, because these Kansas, Leipold, Gundy, these are well-coached. Campbell, Kleiman, like even Brennan, like people have high hopes on him at Arizona, but it's like, these are 4 incredible coaches in a row too. They're not just like good teams up here and, hey, we're just supposed to have a good season this year. They have history behind them.
Yeah. And also Rush, it like 2 years ago, we didn't win the close games, and that's why we went 5-7. So I'm with you. There is a scenario where we could be on the wrong side of a bunch of 1-score games, and we're 3-5 through 8 coming down the stretch where it gets soft. Best case scenario at this point, is there a path to where they could be 6-2?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 6-2. You're got to win their home games, of course. Maybe you drop one in Stillwater.
Yeah.
It's the away. It's kind of like those. 6-2 is looking like you drop one in Stillwater, drop one in Tucson, and then you win out the other ones.
Yeah. And I also think most likely, what do we want to give it? 5-3 here? 5-3 through 8? I think 5-3 is reasonable.
Yeah. Probably.
Protect home field. It's hard to win in Morgantown. I mean, Penn State's going to find that out on Saturday. That's going to be a 1-possession game. So,
and like we said, we're talking most probable scenarios right now, not official predictions. Check us out, Ryan. I would say the most probable scenario for this West Virginia team's losing a close one against Penn State in Morgantown, and then losing in Stillwater, losing in Tucson.
Yeah. That would be the unbiased odds breakdown. So, but in my heart, 8-0.
There you go.
So I separated it with these segments because I want to break it down, because the last 4, I would argue, it gets a little bit softer. I mean, they still have tough ass road spot at the end of the year going to Lubbock, but at Cincinnati, who we both and Troy think are going to be better this year, Baylor, UCF at home, 2 home spots. They should win both of those because Baylor's never won in Morgantown, and UCF's a Florida team coming to Morgantown in November. That's a win. Can they get all 4 of these coming down the stretch, or most likely 3-1?
Absolutely. I think they can win all 4 of them. I at Cincinnati, not concerned about Baylor, UCF, as we kind of talked about and I talked about earlier. who knows what either team's looking like against Texas Tech. That's the problem is when you're preview matchups and you do it all on paper and you're doing the best you can. And I get it. But the last game of the season for either team, you have no idea what you're realistically facing. Like, you just don't. And I think the jury is still out on Texas Tech, right? Last year was supposed to be the year. They were a little surprising 2 years ago. People are kind of getting a little high on them again. They don't have a bad schedule at all, Texas Tech. But
we suck.
Unless the opposing quarterback's named Patrick Mahomes, but it's been
Mahomes.
But also, like, when we've been in Lubbock, like, those were kind of during Neal Brown's figuring it out years. They haven't seen a team like this.
Yeah,
we haven't had a team this good go to Lubbock, I feel like, and lose. Like, I don't like this team. What's up?
Since Gino, when they ran us out of the building that one year.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I mean, like, we're talking
Will Greer.
Yeah, Will Greer, even Skyler. I mean, so tough one, but we got we'll get to that game when we get to that game. That's that, my time. We got so much more to deal with before we even think about Texas Tech. So yes, we could go 4-0 if you can figure out to go. What did we say in your first 8? 5-3, 6-2.
Yeah,
in pretty good shape your last 4 games.
It's about surviving the schedule and getting to the final 4 games where you can give yourself a chance to win out and get to Dallas. That's what it's about. We'll talk floor, ceiling, any futures we want to talk on the other side, but we got to talk about rhythm. College football is here, and I use my model this weekend for week 0. They're the best. If you like offense, you can cater to the offensive data. If you like defense, you can cater your model to the defense. Get your research done. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. And we're also brought to you by the College Football Experience. Game time, baby. So if you want to go to the Penn State game, well, I hope you got a bunch of cash because that ticket is expensive. And if you do got a bunch of cash, make sure you at least check out Game Time, because Game Time at least will give you the best deal, and they will let you know where you're sitting, so no obstructed views. Use our promo code CFBX. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code CFBX for $20 off. Download the Game Time app. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All righty, Rush. Let's flash this one from Daniel. Daniel, good question here, because this kind of goes into our segment of ceiling, floor. What road games are for sure? I don't think any are for sure wins.
Oh,
that's like
Cincinnati.
Yeah, and I don't even think that's a gimme either. I mean, it should be a win, but it's like if they, I mean, I guess the 2 easiest road games would be Cincinnati and Pitt, and Pitt's the backyard brawl, so that's not a gimme. That gets us into our floor. What's our floor here, Rush? I mean, with all these one possession games that we're forecasting, the odds, the look ahead lines are forecasting, I don't think they're going to go unless Greene gets hurt. If Greene's healthy and they don't get absolutely raided by injuries, I can't see them missing a bowl game with this much talent.
Yeah, I can't see. I was trying to think, is there any way they can go 4-8? Because we're obviously talking about floor in terms of we're putting injuries to the side, because obviously that's a completely different conversation. How do we not go at least 6-6?
Yeah.
This team's too good to not go 6-6. I maybe 5
maybe 5. It might be 5-7. It might be 5-7.
I'll say 5-7 because we're talking floor, because even, we're talking. Yeah, I'll go 5-7.
Yeah. Daniel, they were 9
because the line is 6.5. I mean, so 5-7 is the floor, which would be bad.
Yeah. Daniel, 5-7 was 2 years ago. That's the floor. If they lose all those crazy one possession games,
that team
I
is
guess
so
that
much
could be
worse
the floor
than this one.
But yeah, it's the ceiling 10-2, maybe 9-3. Schedule's too hard to go 10-2.
I'll say 10-2. Yeah, you're leaning probably closer to 9-3, but we're ceiling. You
Yeah.
lose to Penn State, you lose to Oklahoma State, figure out a way to win them out. I don't think that's crazy. I actually don't. It's hard.
Yeah.
Not, it's we're talking like a once in a 10-year type run for this West Virginia team. But to be fair, they usually have this once a decade type run, and then once every 5 years, I'll say, they're talked about in terms, can they be a sneaky contender? And especially the playoffs are expanding this year to 12 teams. This is that year.
I think you hit the nail right on the head. I think the floor and ceiling is always the same with West Virginia. It's kind of been that with Dana ever since Rich Rod left and they left the Big East to come to the Big 12. The floor is 5-7, and that's what it's been. Once out of every 5-6 years, they'll go 5-7. Usually they're in that 7-8 win, and then they'll get a special team every 5 years. Will Greer, although Skylar Howard was the one that has won the most games.
10 win.
that everybody forgets, and they can put together a 10-win season. So the ceiling's 10, floor's 5. What's the most likely? 7-5.
Dude, I'm kind of leaning towards 8-4, and like I said, if you go 8-4 again this year to last year, and we're talking most likely, not predictions, because I will say this right now. My prediction is different from what I'm about to tell you right now, but we're talking most likely, kind of taking off non-biased hat a little bit too. Yeah, same record as last year, solid 8 wins, but obviously those 8 wins, 8-4 this year is better than the 8-4 last year because of the way the schedule lines up. It's looking good. I'll tell you this. I think if Neal Brown wins 8 games, I don't know if he'll be at West Virginia next year. I feel confident about that. I think he'll go to the SEC or something. It's 8-4, maybe 7-5, but 3 or 4 of those 5 losses are like, we're talking one score games, like nothing like where it could have gone either way.
It's gonna be an entertaining year. Like I said, West Virginia's got a lot of talent, lot coming back, a lot of excitement. But this is by far the hardest Big 12 schedule. The analytics back that up, and just the naked eye backs that up. I mean, outside of Utah, they drew every single team in the league. The bottom teams in the league from an odds standpoint: Arizona State, not on the schedule. BYU, not on the schedule. Houston, not on the schedule. So they didn't get the 3 bottom teams like they did last year. They didn't get Colorado either, who's kind of in the middle somewhere. But they're going to have to earn it, and they didn't get TCU, so they're going to have to earn their 8 wins if they're going to repeat 8-4. It's going to be a well-earned 8 wins if they get it. Do you want to sprinkle 20-1 to win the Big 12? I am. Hell yeah,
20-1 to win the Big 12. I would sprinkle. National championship, probably not. Let me just add this too, Ryan, just real quick. I will say the benefit to playing all those really good teams in a row, basically kind of to start, even though you have Albany, but let's just say Pitt through Arizona, because Pitt's a rivalry game, so we'll throw them in there. And then you got all those Big 12 games. You do have a bye week in there. Sometimes we've seen this with teams, like they'll play a really good team and then kind of a bad team, then a really good team. Like the idea of like, you got to get up and then you're kind of down, then get up again. Like there is something about playing all these really good teams and having to stay up and stay good. Like a body in motion stays in motion, that could help them. It could. Yeah. We've seen it happen before where you just have to stay up. You have to keep going. You can't, like, everyone's too good. You can't be like, oh, this team's coming to town, which, usually when you have that mindset anyway, teams fail. They can lose those sandwich spot games that we talk about. But maybe the fact that there aren't any sandwich spots actually helps them.
Yeah, the letdown game would be Cincinnati. That would be coming off that gauntlet that we talked about. Yeah. Get the bye, then come out flat like they did against Houston out of the bye. So
I agree.
It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. A lot of one score games. So a lot of take the points, probably, whether they're favored or they're dogs. But yeah, love this team. We're both high on them. We just realistic in terms of the schedule. They didn't get any favors. So, all right, Rush, that'll conclude the West Virginia Mountaineers, and 20-1, baby, 20-1 to win the Big 12. That's in the portfolio. Rush, why don't you tell everybody what we got going on? We got our final Big 12 preview going live tonight on the Ryan and Rush show.
Maybe we did just get a message from one of those. We'll talk about it later. But yes, we have one more preview to do on the Ryan and Rush show, Oklahoma State. We're trying to fit that in. We've had local media guys on, so it's been great to kind of get their take on everything, get in the details a little bit. Big special guest coming on tomorrow because tomorrow starts West Virginia Penn State week. So check us out over there. Got some West Virginia media guys coming on too. And then we'll talk to a Penn State guy, our guy Jake Myers, on Wednesday. And then, like we said, our Penn State preview and predictions will be out Thursday. And then, of course, the day before game day, all Friday. So catch us on those as well. Everything going on. A lot of content, Ryan. It's a great time of year.
Absolutely. And guys, obviously, go check out Colby's show on Wednesday night. But then come over there and get our picks on Friday. So there's so much line movement. There's so much storylines for that go on throughout the week. So we're going to do ours on Friday over there at the Ryan and Rush show with all the teams, all conferences. So make sure you go check that out. Go check out the college basketball experience going live here in 10 minutes with the head coach of North Carolina A&T. Go check out the college football experience. I already said that. Go check out the main sports gambling podcast. We all come together on youtube.com/the college experience. That's going to do it for the Ryan and Rush show over here at the Big 12 College Experience. He is at Rambling Rush. I am at Moneyline_Mac. We are the Big 12 College Experience. Cheers, ears. Let's go, ears. And we are out of here.